Hey you all, Farmer Jesse here. So for the last 2 years or so, I've been doing a studs and duds video at the end of the season, recapping my favorite tools from that year. But the honest truth is, I'm not really changing tools very often, or at least not often enough to necessitate a studs and duds video every year. I may try a few new things, but unless it's a big time winner, I'm not likely to make a video about it. Instead, I figured a video focusing on the tools I can't really farm without would be a better idea. So let's do it. First things first, if you're not subscribed to this channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, you're awesome. It's windy here. A couple quick things. Hats are back in stock. Get them while they last at no-tillgrowers.com. Also, while you're there, you can pick up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook or other merch like this shirt. You can always support our work at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers as well. All of that helps produce these videos. And last thing, go over to the No-Till Growers forum and join in the conversation. I'm there answering questions along with other great growers. So that's awesome. So one of the types of people you will see on YouTube in basically every industry is the gearhead. This is the person that has every type of gear or gadget and is always getting the new and the latest. And no judgment here, genuinely. It's nice to have people who try all the tools and get some insight on them. But if you talk with the professionals in most of these industries, they're going to tell you that one, technique is almost always more important than the tool. And two, there is no perfect tool. No tool is going to solve all of your problems. Put another way, if you don't have the technique dialed in, the fancy tool is not going to solve the issue. Someone who is good at composition, for instance, and lighting in photography is always going to shoot a better photograph with basically any camera than an inexperienced person who owns the latest model of whatever it is with the best lens. Same thing goes for farming. It is not the tool, but the user who is going to make it effective. Anyway, what I want to do with this video is just literally lay out the tools I need. Like if I were going to start a small market garden, these are the tools I would pick up first. Other tools may make more sense in different contexts, and I encourage you to add your contexts and tools in the comment section, but this list will get you pretty far. And I will link the relevant tools in the show notes as well, so you can go and click on them and all those good things. In my mind, these videos are somewhat collaborative. So like I said, add your input in the comment section. Otherwise, you may need a notebook. Sorry. Okay, so I'm just mostly going to sort of rapid fire these because, well, for a lot of tools, it's not necessary to go into heavy detail. Take the simple trowel, for instance. This is an essential tool for our farm, but I don't need to tell you about every single trowel on the market. I love this trowel in particular that I got from Johnny's Selected Seeds, but I've got good trowels from the local hardware store as well, or hand-me-downs or whatever. We try not to use the trowel a ton, but it comes in handy in no-till sometimes when wanting to transplant into soil that's a little denser without working it up, like tomatoes into a cover crop, for instance. I do, however, wish I had a trowel on a stick so I could stand up when I was using it. Yes, I know I'm describing a shovel, but like a shovel with a trowel tip, a truvel, trademark that. I do own a couple different shovels that have different purposes. A flat shovel is excellent for loading compost. A digging shovel is nice when it's about getting into the soil because a flat shovel doesn't sink as well. But if I was going to highlight one particular shovel, it would be the spade shovel made by Ace of Spades that I got from Way Cool Tools. It stays sharp and it's great for starting holes and things like popping up sweet potatoes when the soil is dry, or regular potatoes at harvest, or carrots or whatever. And of course, a pitchfork is not a shovel, but gets a ton of use on our farm and is great for pitching new ideas. I mean, if you've ever pitched anything with a pitchfork in your hand, you've probably never been turned down. It's like 100% effective. Obviously, I would recommend a good wheelbarrow. We blow through wheelbarrows here on our farm. We use them so much. And so I don't have any good recommendations necessarily for a great one, but they come in many different shapes and sizes, from those with 2 wheels to 4 wheels, different spacing, whatever makes sense for you. Either way, there is hardly a more utilized tool on our farm. So I would add that one to the budget. Also, a good harvest cart. I don't have one at present. I've been threatening to get one for a long time. We've often just used like a dedicated wheelbarrow that we weren't using for other things, but few things will slow you down more than just harvesting one thing at a time, taking that one thing to the wash pack and going back for more. Harvest a bunch, haul a bunch. This cart from Carts Vermont gets the most recommendations because it will last forever, but you don't have to spend money like that in the beginning. Like I said, you could even set aside a wheelbarrow that you don't use for composting or material hauling specifically for harvests, if you wanted to. Anything to save you steps is a great idea. Have I ever told you about the greatest tool ever invented? It's the post puller from Premier One Supplies. It's seriously the greatest tool ever. And if you're doing a lot of field trellising with T-posts and dense soils, this thing will change your life. I have two essential rakes. The bed rake from Johnny's is my favorite bed rake I've tried, and I also like this little tine rake weeder that doesn't work very well for weeding, but is really great for removing debris from beds. I actually don't think it's for sale anymore because it's terrible for weeding, but if you can find a similar leaf rake with these sort of sturdy tines, it would probably serve the same purpose. For instance, we will sometimes simply mow a bed of lettuce and to clear it and then replant, but before we replant, especially if we're seeding, we lightly rake off that trash, the lettuce residue, with this rake. Super easy and more effective than the bed rake. It doesn't get caught on all the roots left in there. It's not a weeder though. I've seen the tine rake weeder from Two Bad Cats in action, and that could be a really helpful tool in low or no-till systems where weeds are more prevalent. This little rake, or any rake like for leaves or whatever, is just strictly for bed prep. Speaking of seeders, recently, I'm a big fan of the jang, but I also like having the earthway in support of it. In fact, if I was just starting out again, I would not say the jang is an essential tool. Start with the earthway and develop your skills and learn a bit more about what your market demands, and then maybe add the jang to your budget. I know really professional growers who rely solely on the earthway, like Daniel Mays at Frith Farm. As a seeder, the earthway has its quirks and limitations, but it is a very smart and simple tool. I've tried practically every seeder, and these two, the jang and the earthway, are still the best. And as you get more dialed in on your production, you can decide if a JP3 or a JP5 or a pinpoint seeder would be beneficial. But that JP1, the original jang, and the earthway, classics. Having a small collinear hoe is helpful, and a few different sizes of stirrup hoe as well. Not much to say there. I get mine from Johnny's as well. They're great. They're really important tools, and they keep our garden weed-free most of the time. My Gritter. I love my Gritter from Never Sink Tools. It saves a ridiculous amount of time. Even after we switched to 4-foot wide beds from 30-inch beds, it's still tremendously useful because we can just, for instance, run the 4x4 spool right down the middle of the bed and then just eye the outer two rows when planting something like lettuce. And it turns out mostly straight, mostly. If you were really wanting perfect lines, you could also lay a string, and that would help you get that, more clean look. It's about to get windy. Honestly, you could probably get away with just getting the 4x4 spool and attaching it to some bent 1/2-inch metal conduit like this to save some money. Base all of your spacing off 7.75 inches or whatever the Gritter is spaced at. The conduit won't last forever, but it's an easy way to change spools with the conduit, and it's way cheaper than the handle. I use 30% shade cloth for establishing lettuce in the summer, and I could not grow summer lettuce without it. Right, unless I had trees for shade, but unless you can plant like a 40-foot tree, it's gonna be a while. I think I got this from Farmer's Friend LLC, but there are other, likely other suppliers out there, so feel free to list yours in the comment section and shop around, all those good things. Another set of tools that deserve their own video are the BCS walk-behind tractor implements. I don't know if you can really call an implement a tool, but it kind of is. It's certainly something that we use a lot on our farm. So for our purposes, I find that the 3 implements that are almost essential to our production are the flail mower, which could also just be replaced to some extent with a rear mulching push mower. It's just a tool that helps mow, of course, but also gets used a lot in bed flips. And I really like the power harrow, especially for establishing cover crops, but also in some cases for terminating them. A tilther could replace some of the bed prep potential for a fairly lower price, but you just lose the ability to terminate cover crops with it. And then I find the rotary plow helpful in a lot of cases for raising beds, working compost into new garden plots that are compacted, and even just digging trenches for whatever reason that you may need a trench. It happens. Our BCS is the 749 model, but again, I need to just do a whole video on the BCS and walk behind tractors because all combined, it's not very cheap. and probably needs more fleshing out. And there are a lot of different ways you could go with it, a lot of different tractors and setups. So yeah, maybe later on that. We're on dense clay soils here in our part of Kentucky, so the broadfork has been a profoundly helpful tool for breaking through our compaction, allowing us to get the soil cranking again pretty quickly. I like the Gulland Forge broadforks a whole lot. They're the perfect combination of the sturdy meadow creature with the light and sharp sort of Johnny style broadforks, specifically the Bertha and the Big Bertha models. Harvest knives, of course, are superbly important. I get these again from Johnny's as well, and I like the side blade for cutting mixed lettuce, but the top blade for harvesting heads of lettuce, for instance. The quick cut harvester is an amazing tool also, but start with the knives and get a feel for what your crops are going to be and your market and what you can sell. It's okay to be slow at harvesting for a while as you dial in your production, then switch to the quick cut if it's something that makes sense, because it is a great tool and will save you a lot of time, but it's not super cheap, so make sure you need it. Not to be redundant, but the wash pack station is a whole other area of tools that need, their own videos. But for that, you just need a sink, a salad spinner, either purchased or homemade, and some sort of cooler along with some travel coolers to take to market. That's like the whole list that you have to start, in my opinion. And the cooler doesn't have to be like a walk-in cooler. It can just be refrigerators. I know lots of people that just use that. That's kind of the bare essentials. Speaking of market stuff, if you're doing a market, I really love our Eurotent. It was recommended to us by our market manager, Josh England. And if you ever need advice on tents or tables or anything, market managers generally know their stuff. They're a great resource for that. Seed starting is a fairly large category, but I love my standing soil blocker. I love my heat mat, even though it could clearly use some TLC. And I love my paper pot trays that I don't actually use for paper pot production. Nothing inherently against the paper pot system, just hasn't really worked in our system, in our field management. Our beds are too rough most of the time. We play with it from time to time just to keep seeing if it makes sense for certain preparations. And I know growers who use it to great effect with crops like beets and lettuce, but I don't think I would recommend anyone buying that first thing. It's too expensive. There's a little bit of a learning curve. You got to get really good at your bed prep, really good at seed starting and greenhouse production. So do that first and then start looking at things like the paper pot. Really important to get your seed starting skills down first. Garden clogs. I love my garden clogs. I don't really use boots much anymore unless I absolutely have to. I simply do not like sitting down and tying my shoes. It's a huge waste of time if you add it up over the course of your lifetime. I already spend a huge percentage of my life working. I don't want to spend any more time getting ready to work. I want to slip my shoes on while I'm standing there and slip them off when I come in the house. So even the boots I own can be slipped on and off with ease. They're rubber boots. I don't use anything with laces unless I have to. I'm pretty sure the farm will not be here when I'm done with this video. It will be in the neighbor's yard. Multi-tools are cool, though they are super bulky and can be a little pricey. So after I lost the third or fourth one, I just don't carry them anymore. I now just have an open L knife I got for Father's Day, and I somehow managed to keep track of it. But I do miss having a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver, a serrated knife, and a bottle opener on hand sometimes for bottles of compost. That said, the other tool I do carry in my pocket besides my cell phone, which is obviously a good record-keeping tool, cat videos. Oh my God, he ate that guy. The other tool I carry at all times is this little diamond sharpener from Johnny's. I love this thing for sharpening harvest knives, pocket knives, and stirrup hose as I work. Super handy and not at all bulky. Anyway, I mean dogs, deer fencing. There are 1,000 things I could add to this video, but I will leave the fleshing out to you all in the comments section because that was a lot of talking, not gonna lie. Otherwise, like this video if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, grab a copy of this book at this website, visit us at the forum at no-tillgrowers.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye. I've been thinking I may just sing my whole next video. I've been thinking I may just sing my whole next video.